I am very excited about this viewer request.
Andrew sent through his incredible Alaïa rounded cargo pants.
Why am I excited about this? Well, Bellow Pants having a bit of a fashion moment, and I think everyone's doing a bit of an average job creating them.
Most designers are just reshaping the side seam so it's rounded, which looks so flat and makes the side seam stick out weirdly.
I haven't tried this on personally, but they look pretty weird in photos. It'd be like making a flared skirt, but instead of adding volume across the skirt, so by slashing and spraying the pattern or rotating the darts to the hem, you just chuck it all at the side seam there so it sticks out the side and looks really flat at the front.
But Alaïa have been clever. They've done this twisted side seam so you can round along the side of the body, and I'm very excited to try and recreate this.
Hi, welcome to Pant Leg Fit. In this demonstration, I'll be following my designer's pattern process. The system I developed when I wrote my pattern making guides, and it's nothing revolutionary.
It's the same 4-stage approach used by professional pattern makers, broken down into clear steps for designers and home sewists. The first stage is pretty simple. It's all about identifying the changes I need to make to the block.
In the industry, to speed up the pattern making process, pattern makers work from blocks, especially pants because it's really hard to get the crotch area right on a pair of pants. So once you get it right, you don't want to touch it.
This design has a lower crotch, so I would use my relaxed fit block, which features about 5 centimeters, so 2 inches below the crotch.
This gives you a bit of room, but it's not saggy or unflattering. And if you can't get enough, or a tail-to member of my YouTube channel, you can watch this video to find out how I made my relaxed fit block using the trousered block as a base.
Now let's see what changes I need to make. Annoyingly, I couldn't find any pictures of somebody wearing this, so I'm assuming they finish at the waist and the ankle, which is what my block does. I need to add this patch pocket, some welt pockets, a fly, belt loops, and I can't see any waistband along the top, which means it has a facing. That's what I'll be covering in this video.
Stage 2 is all about making your life easier and creating a solid foundation to put your design on. Yes, we're using a block, but in this stage we're going to transform the block into your design silhouette.
In my trouser jeans short guide, I broke this down to 3 steps, and step 1 is adjusting the leg length, which I can skip because my pant finishes at the ankle like the block does. The next step is to adjust the leg fit.
My guide is all the ankle and knee measurements for the usual pant legs, from super skinny to wide palazzo style pants. However, this pant's a bit different. I suspect what they've done is add the style line, then slash and spread along it to add more volume along the area there. And they also need to move the waist darts to the style line. Let's see if I can recreate it.
Before I add the style line, I'm going to remove the waist dart on the front by simply curving the side seam in by the same amount as the dart excess.
You don't actually need the front waist dart on most body types. If you've got a relatively flat stomach, however, if you do have an apple-shaped body or a larger tummy, I'd recommend keeping it, but on most body shapes, you can get away with getting rid of it.
There also isn't a visible dart on the back, and what they've done is move the dart excess to the style line. So, I'll draw the top of the style line, then move the waist dart to the style line by drawing a wedge a similar shape to the dart excess. This pant doesn't have a side seam, so I'll cut along the style line and stick it on the front. This removes the side seam on this part. Then I'll reshape the waist seam over the dart excess I removed so it's a continuous straight line, and draft the style line on the front. And I'll draw the style line on the back too.
Now I'm going to draw some slash lines coming out from the style line, cut along them and spread them slightly, just a bit. See how along the style line there's a bit of a roundness to it, the pant is coming away from the leg? That's got this extra fabric there because they've slashed and spread along this style line. And when I slash and spread the style line, it also changes the side of the pant. Here's my pattern and my style lines, and I'm going to flip the back pattern over so I have a pair. This will make the demonstration a bit clearer. Now I'm going to draw some slash lines coming perpendicularly out from the style line. Let's start with the front first. I'll cut along the style line, put a piece of pattern paper behind it, cut along each slash line, finishing just for the seam, and spread it slightly. I don't want to add too much, the roundness should be subtle. I also want to make sure I add the same amount to each side of the style line, otherwise one side will be longer than the other. Okay, that's the front. I'll just cut the pattern out. Now for the back. I'll cut along the style line, cut along each slash line and spread the pattern. I want to spread the pattern by the same amount so the side seam curve is the same on the front and back. You'll see why in a second. Then I'll cut out the lower back piece. Now, remember how there's no side seam? Well, I'm going to stick the back side and front side pieces together along the side seam, making sure the top and bottom line up perfectly. This is what's really cool about this technique. Remember how most designers were just sort of reshaping the side seam to create that barrel pant leg? Well, by adding style lines and slashing along them, not only are we adding more volume along the style line, but we're also adding to the side seam to create a beautiful roundness around the leg.
A couple of quick things I need to clean up here. I'll redraw the ankle to remove the point and create a nice smooth line. Then I'll cut the pattern. The top here is looking a bit pointy, so I'll smooth it out on both pattern pieces so the style line is a beautiful curved line sculpting around the body.
And that's how you adjust the leg fit. This is a bit more complicated than average leg fit adjustments, but I love creative pattern making. And the more you practice, the more you'll enjoy it and get better at it too.
In the final step of stage 2, we need to adjust the rise. And I can skip this step because I'm assuming the pant finishes at the waist, like my block does, so I need to adjust it.
Stage 3 of my trouser jeans short guide is all about adding the design details for your pant. And the section is absolutely huge because there are so many different design details for pants.
To create this pant, I need to follow steps in pockets to create the welt and patch pocket, waist finishes to create the facing and fly opening, and I'll need the belts and ties section so I can create the belt loops. If you look at the pocket section in my guide, I divide them into 3 types: seam, set-in, and patch.
Welt pockets are a type of set-in pocket, and this pant actually has 3 welt pockets.
It has a traditional one on the back right under the dart, as well as one on the right and one on the left leg with a flap coming out of it.
In this demonstration, I'll be showing you how to create a traditional welt pocket, so the one on the top right of the pants there under the dart. And you can apply these principles to any welt pocket. The only difference is when you do a traditional welt pocket, you're extending the pocket bag all the way to the waist seam to help secure the pocket. If you put the welt pocket somewhere else, you need to extend the pocket bag to the nearest seam to help secure it.
Believe it or not, a traditional welt pocket bag pattern looks like this when it's finished. And on the right is the welt, which is rectangular, and the pocket facing. To get to this, you need to draw the welt pocket opening on your pant block. This is usually at the bottom of the back waist dart. Add the Y cut line down the center, add a facing to the back of the pocket so you don't see the pocket bag lining when you open the pocket. Then draw the pocket bag, which needs to extend all the way to the top to strengthen and support the pocket. To create the facing pattern, you just trace off the facing shape. The welt pocket pattern is the same shape as the opening, but twice as wide as the pattern is on the fold.
The pocket bag is a bit trickier though. Firstly, when you trace the pocket bag, you'll make the front and back pattern one piece.
So you fold the paper along the bottom edge and trace them at the same time. In the end, one side has the Y cut line, which is the front, and the other side has the facing stitch lines, which is the back. The other thing to note, this dart will be closed when you attach the pocket, so you need to draw the correct waistline so it doesn't include the dart excess after you trace the pocket bag.
If that's blowing your mind, I feel you. Welt pockets are the hardest pockets to make, in my opinion. The good news is patch pockets are much easier.
Cargo pockets are patch pockets, which are sewn to the exterior of the pant. And this pant has a particular type of cargo pocket known as a bellow pocket. These pockets are raised above the fabric by sewing a strip of fabric around the pocket. To create this pocket, all you need to do is mark the outline on your pattern. Trace it off, and voila, you have the pocket pattern. Turn to a bellow pocket. I'll measure around the 3 sides of the pocket, not including the opening, and create a rectangular pattern the same length. And I think the width of the strip is about 3 centimeters, just over an inch. Then just add your seam allowances. You can create the flap the same way. When you draw it on your pattern, make sure you leave at least 1 centimeter gap, so 3/8 of an inch, between the pocket opening and the bottom row of flap stitching. See how the flap is stitched to the pant along the top? Usually, there's a double row of stitching 1 centimeter, so 3/8 of an inch apart. This helps hold the flap down. I'm going to leave an even wider gap for this design, say 2 centimeters to 3/4 inch. Then I'll trace the flap shape. Once traced off the flap and pocket patterns, you turn the pocket outline into a dashed line. This is where the pocket will be stitched to the pant, and you put a drill hole at each corner. For the flap, because it's only stitched at the top, you need to rub out most of the outline, just keeping the top edge, and mark the second row of top stitching along the top, so there are 2 lines.
Whew, okay, pockets are done. Now I can move on to the waist finishes. The top of any pant needs to be finished, and if you can't see a waistband, it means it's got a facing.
To create the facing, all you need to do is trace the top 4 centimeters, so 1/2 inch of the pattern, assuming a facing is 4 centimeters wide, which is pretty standard. But before I do that, I'll stick the back and front pattern pieces together so I can trace the facing as one piece. And I can put this pattern on the fold at the center back.
I have one little industry trick to share with you here. To help conceal the facing so you don't see it along the top edge,
You can drop the top by 0.2 centimeters, so 1/16 of an inch at the side of the facing, and by 0.4 centimeters, so 1/8 of an inch at the center of the piece. If you do this, You also need to adjust the base of the facing so the width stays 4 cm across the pattern piece. Then just add your seam allowances.
The fly in these pants is right over left, which is a traditional way for women's pants.
Flies are made of 2 pattern pieces, the fly facing and the fly shield. The first step is to mark the end of your opening. This is where the zip will finish. Then extend the centre front by 1 cm, so 3/8 of an inch on the side that goes under to this point. If your pattern is a pair, write cut here for the side, so left hand side or right hand side is going on top. You only want to extend the side of the pant that goes under.
This step I always see people forget, even teachers, and it's really important because it helps to conceal zip along the fly opening.
Then you draw the fly facing shape on the front pattern and trace it off so it's right side up to create the pattern. To create the shield, you can use the fly facing pattern as a base. The only difference is the fly shield needs to be 1 cm, so 3/8 of an inch longer. This helps to create a cleaner finish inside. It also should be 1 cm narrower, since it's attached to the 1 cm extension we add along the centre front. And you can put it on the fold to make it easier to sew. Then just add your seam allowances. One last thing on the fly. Right now, the waist facing and fly facing are overlapping, which would add extra fabric bulk to my pants, so I would copy the facing so I have one for the right and left side. Then on the right side, I would subtract the fly facing from it. These 2 pieces will be stitched together here. Last little bit is to add the belt loops. Belt loops are rectangular patterns on the fold.
The trick with belt loops, or thing to remember, is you need to add some ease so the belt can slide through easily. The belt loop length should be slightly longer than the distance on the pattern.
See how the belt loops rise away from the pant? Increasing the belt loop length by 1.5 cm, so half an inch, should be enough.
Now that you've created your silhouette and added the design details, you can go to the final stage. This is a really important stage, so checking your pattern can be sewn together correctly. The first step is to true your joining seams. I've done a whole video on that, which you can check out, or you can follow the steps in my guide. And then you need to add your seam allowances. And for this design, I'd add 1 cm, so 3/8 of an inch seam allowances pretty much everywhere.
And I'm thinking the trouser has a 1.2 cm, so half an inch double fold hem.
Because it's a double fold, you need to add a 2.4 cm, so 1 inch hem, so you can fold it twice. I hope you enjoyed this viewer request video, and here are a couple more you can check out with lots more pant drafting tips. If you missed out on this round of free pattern making consults or didn't know I was doing them, don't worry, I'll be doing more in the future.
So subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the notifications bell.
Then you set an alert every time I post something on my channel. And of course, well, you don't actually really need me anymore because you can grab one of my guides and follow my 4-stage design a pattern process to create your own pant patterns.